So yeah, we're live. Market was pretty hot yesterday, and today Johnson and Johnson announced that they're going into phase 3 of their vaccine. So I thought that was really good news for the coronavirus in general, and just seeing that we're close to the end of this. And then the Dow is looking like it's going to open almost up 200 points, and a lot of that's because of Nike. Mike, I know you texted us saying you bought Nike into the close. Great call. They're up almost $15 on
That's
really
on,
good
I thank Kramer for that one. I followed his lead.
They're nice. Well, yeah, they've been getting a bunch of Target increases, and their e-commerce business increased, I think, over 80%. Huge demand in China. So obviously things are going really well for Nike.
Yeah, I got out of that after hours near the high. Like I figured with how much it ran up, I'll take the quick buck, find a another entry point there on a pullback. I can't refuse that type of quick money where I'm in and out of a stock in 2 hours like that.
You were talking about the J&J story, which is big news. If anyone really wants to get a handle on who's working on what, Mike Milken, who used to work on Wall Street and has dedicated the rest of his life to kind of health through foundations, is tracking all of the different things that are going on. And he's got a COVID-19 vaccine tracker. And I'm looking at the site now. It's COVID-19 vaccinetracker.org. And there are 212 vaccines are in development worldwide now. And there's 6 in phase 3, and J&J is not listed here yet. So there's basically 7 that are in phase 3, which is the furthest along. And he lists in order who the leading candidates are to get it done first. It's a very helpful site and really tells the true story of what's going on.
What's the site?
COVID-19 vaccinetracker.org.
Nice. Sounds like a good way to get ahead of the narrative a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
it's on these headlines to come in.
Right. I mean, reading between all the smoke and mirrors that everyone puts out with all these false news stories, etc., this gets to the reality of what's going on. So, just a side note.
What's your take here? Because we have the S&P back above 3,300. It looks like here. And,
yeah, I think the mentality for a couple of days got off the idea of back to work, and then J&J comes out with this, and it kind of reminds people that there is a possibility that a vaccine is coming soon. So, what do we buy if people start getting back to normal?
And a stimulus package is coming one way or another.
Yeah. So maybe they go back to the cyclicals again. I mean, they got hit hard. I'm really surprised how it's almost like the buyers just walked away and all the traders got out. So yeah. I would look for those names because they've gotten hit.
So give us a good one to throw in the mix right at the open here.
Well, it's the same names that we've been talking about all along. Ford, Steel, Caterpillar.
How about 3M?
Names don't change; the prices do. And you got to be careful when you go in those. But those are the names. The banks are a disaster. They look like they have a little bit of a bid today.
So, Dad, do you like steel here? Like X is down to 750. It's come down quite a bit.
They do, but I'm thinking more in terms of looking out a couple of months rather than buy it today and sell it today. Maybe that works, maybe it doesn't. But I want to be in those kind of names going forward.
So that's a stock you would have as an anchor heading into the next stretch.
Another one that we don't talk about is Freeport-McMoRan, FCX, which is involved with copper and some gold and etc. Or even gold, GOLD. That's the one that Warren Buffett's group bought, and it's come down quite a bit recently. And that's
everything he touches doesn't go to gold; it turns to shit lately. So I'll be staying away from that one. Warren Buffett is not.
Well, he did okay in Apple.
Mike, there's a lot of people that look at gold similar to Bitcoin, like it's kind of in this consolidation period and it's about to break out. So
that's great. That just makes me want to buy more Bitcoin for anyone.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's tough for me to get too excited about all these types of names, even though it's obvious that they're good names to be in. If there is going to be another stimulus package, not a relief package, but like an actual stimulus package, like an infrastructure package, which, Dad, it sounds like you're really confident on. You've been saying this for months, and I don't see why there wouldn't be once the election's over.
So you got to love X then. That's a great company around that.
Yeah, it's one. I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket. It's one of many that I think you can be in.
I think putting a lot of your eggs in one basket is how you get paid. When you spread things out, it's just not, you're not going to make next level cash.
If you have analyzed it, if you've analyzed it to death and you really have a good handle on how it's going to be, rather than just charting and picking names, I agree with you.
Yeah, like the Chewy founder. He's a genius, the way he handles investments. It's the Pareto principle.
But I think you have to be really confident in the name before you do that. You don't want to be blindsided. And it's easy to get blindsided in any one name.
I think GameStop, going back to that, you guys know I was in and out of that the other day. I was doing more research on them yesterday, and I'm going to get back in that stock because it seems to me it's just at the beginning of where that's heading in a whole new era. And I'm very bullish on what I read on what they're working on. So I think that's a great opportunity for any of our viewers to just get in now and hold.
At this point, it's all speculation. And
it's not speculation. The founder of Chewy owns 10% of the company. That's not speculation.
I'm talking about the vision of them rolling out an e-commerce website.
That's not a vision. It's happening. Look at the VCs behind that company now with him.
I'm just saying, at the moment, it's speculation. He hasn't even really brought the plan. Like when I was reading about it, it's not like they're working on it. This is
they are. They've been working on it for 9 months.
Nah, I mean they're not.
Yeah, they are, man. They've saved 126 mil, closing a lot of locations. I read up for 2 hours yesterday on what they're doing, and it's genius. They're not. Some people think they're like a Blockbuster all over again, which I don't even see how it correlates at all. It's nothing like that.
They don't make the games, but. To switch gears, another company that I know we've talked about a bunch on here but haven't brought up in a long time is Twitter. They got an upgrade this morning, and they're almost at 44 right now, which is, they're getting back to, I don't know if it's their all-time highs, but their all-time recent highs. And I know we've talked about the idea of them coming out with some sort of subscription model for their influencers, which
that's still hearsay. Been talking about that for years, and they haven't done anything. I don't see it.
We're at 47.79 is their all-time high, and that was back in
the last election,
2018.
2018, yeah. I mean, look, there's no doubt Twitter is making a lot of moves with the whole live streaming game. Like that's where a lot of these companies go to broadcast themselves for live streaming. And it's up to them to figure out how to monetize that. But the people that are using Twitter, they're doing it to monetize their own businesses. So there's no reason Twitter can't take some sort of cut. They just have to do it. I don't know what the holdup is. But when they do announce that, I think it's, that stock, I look at that stock, I think it could more than triple in the next few years.
Yeah, I don't know if it's coincidental looking at the long-term chart on Twitter, and it definitely runs up through the summer and then collapses, almost as if the election, people say, oh no, the election's coming, and then they won't have a lot going on. So they sell it off, and then it starts getting excited again leading up to the next one. So
I will say that the whole live streaming that Twitter's doing is a relatively new thing that didn't exist in the last election. So that could be something that has legs even after the election's over.
Yeah. So, I'm looking at some of these tech names. They kind of running out of steam from the moves over the last couple of days. So it's going to be interesting to see if they hold today or they continue lower. So that's something to keep a close eye on today.
Like what names are you talking about? Microsoft?
The same, the big names. I mean, obviously Tesla's down, off of, I wouldn't call it disappointing news on the battery production, but obviously people don't like everything they heard.
Stock can't go up forever.
Yeah. And the Apple.
When you really break down Tesla, I think it's important to still realize that stock before the split would still be trading over 2,000. So, it looks cheap when you think about where it was at one point, but when you take away the split, it's still in no man's land.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would not be a Tesla holder at these levels.
Can I tape that and play back what you said last time, Mike?
I mean, what do you mean, Dad? I said don't bet against Elon Musk, and I'll never sway on that at all. I don't own the stock currently. I'll get in Tesla when I feel it's at a good value. When everyone's telling me they just bought Tesla, I'm not buying it because they're usually wrong.
Yeah,
you got to be the contrarian.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that things are selling off in the tech names early, because then it's easier to make a decision if you want to buy later. If they were just straight up again, I don't know how you jump in and buy.
Yeah, I will say we're in the kind of market, at least not with Tesla, but when you look at Microsoft, where it's literally, and I hate to even say this because it's an irresponsible way of thinking about it, but if the stock's red, at some point it's going to be green today. And then at some point it'll probably be red again, and then at some point it'll be green again. Like these tech stocks are going back and forth in crazy ways, leading the markets with them. And I mean, even Microsoft, it's been doing it all morning, really. It's been kind of bouncing around between up pretty good and then down and then up and then down.
And these stocks can have huge moves down before going back up. I mean, Microsoft, the last time it ran up to 191, not this rally, the last one, and came down to 130. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, Microsoft already, and that's where it's tough to know if this is over. I'm starting to think maybe it is, because tech came down 14%. Microsoft almost hit 191, and here we are back at 207.50 right now, which is insane. But I don't necessarily know if these stocks are just going to go right back to all-time highs. They might not.
No way.
They might be stuck in.
Well, the best thing that could happen is they go sideways for a length of time. So people who want to get out, and it gives people a chance to start positions. But you never get these stocks going down to that perfect technical spot, or rarely. So, you would have loved to see Microsoft get down to that 191.50 level, somewhere around there. And it almost did, but it didn't. So anyone who was waiting for that kind of missed the boat so far. It got down to 196. And if you look at a lot of these charts, it's like that. Like Amazon, I think a lot of people were thinking maybe this thing can get down to the 200-day, and it just didn't quite get there.
What was the 200-day for? Like 27.50?
27.20 right now. So it did almost, it got down to 28.72. And
yeah, and now it's tough to, it's funny because we were talking about that put option. That would, again, after yesterday, that thing would just be up huge right now. But
yesterday's move in Amazon was astronomical.
Oh my God, I know. I mean, I actually do think Amazon will be at 37.50 probably within the next year.
Yeah, it feels that way. I think the biggest risk to these big names like Google and Amazon is what the government might do to either try to slow the consumption of these companies. Seem to just take everything in and get rid of competition, which the government hates.
Could you lay out an example of when that's happened? Because I haven't really seen that. It always seems like
it happened with the telephone company. That was the biggest example. And basically what they did is they told the telephone company. They have to totally break up, and they broke up into, I can't remember how many different parts, but they all became independent companies. So if you owned telephone back in the day, you were given like 8 different companies in place of it, or in addition to telephone. Like you might have owned Southwestern Bell was one, I remember, New England Bell. I don't know. There were a whole bunch of them. And then you had to analyze those companies on their own, and they, for a long time, lived as separate companies. And it made it easier for other companies to come in. And they told the telephone company that they couldn't have a monopoly on all the wiring in the country. They had to allow other companies to use it. So there's a lot of things that the government could do to change it, change it up tremendously. And it takes a lot of resources for these companies to defend against monopolies. And, it's not a fun thing for a company to go through, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, if Penn ever went through that with Barstool, where Barstool was its own spinoff company, Penn would probably collapse. Everyone would spend their money and be 100% Barstool. Speaking of Penn, that stock is holding up very, very nicely. It's getting back to all-time highs, which it was at 3 days ago, I think at like 76. And this stock is relentless. I mean, I keep waiting for this big reversal that just doesn't seem to ever come.
Well, it's going to come. It's overbought.
It's going to come, but it might get to like mid-80s before it comes.
I'd be shocked by that.
Would you, though?
Yeah, I
would.
would.
What, though? This competition, like we talked about it yesterday, for getting people to sign up on these.
Yeah, they're watering down their own stuff. I am not a fan of these gaming stocks here. It reminds me of our industry.
Yeah, it's even worse. I mean, if you live in Colorado right now, you could basically, start an account at 4 or 5 different, sites, put in a little bit of money, and they give you these free bets. It's worth like a few $1,000s. It's really
yeah. I think a lot of those people don't actually stick with it. They just get the free bet. We're in that world. People like handouts, so I don't see that as a strategy for anything.
I also will admit that when Penn originally bought Barstool, I was really excited about the partnership just because I really loved what Barstool brought to the table, but I wasn't sure like what angle they were going to take as far as what they were going to really do. And I always thought what they were going to do was kind of just keep going along with just being this huge media company that had all these different wheelhouses, and starting to feel like they're like really going all in on the sports betting app. They relocated to Philly. They're doing all these things that
I think that's really smart. Like that's not because we've talked about the future landscape of gambling, and they need to. That makes the most sense for them to be going all in on that.
I just looked at it like they were starting to really become the #1 content media company. I'm not saying they're putting a back seat on that, but I wonder if that stuff's going to suffer long term. But to switch it up here, another company that we talked about a little here, but they're knocking on 100 doors, Zillow. Dad, I know you always like when a company breaks through 100. It's funny whenever Nigerian's bringing up his options on that Fast Money show during lunchtime, and at times he'll be like, I'm actually buying some of this as we speak. If you watch the stock he brings up, you'll see like a 2 million share spike as he's talking every time, which was Zillow yesterday. So that stock, it always moves on super low volume, but it's had really good earnings last time. They got up to 85 after earnings, consolidated, and now almost are at 100 for the first time. Dad, talk about, because I know you've told Mike and I this off of this show before, and it seems to always, not always, but work a lot. The whole concept of like when a stock breaks through the triple digit level, it gets
100. This was something I learned long ago, that there are certain psychological barriers for stocks, and they're always round numbers. And the first time a stock goes through the level of 100 creates a lot of technical support for a stock. And not always, but many, I don't know what percent of the time, a stock that goes through 100, you'll see it 115. Now, part of that is the momentum that creates that, and so many people play this game now that it's almost inevitable that that kind of happens. Is there any fundamental reason for it? In a way, because if a stock is moving higher, there's usually fundamentals behind it. And there's no reason for it to stop when it gets to 100. But, when you put it all together, the fundamentals, the momentum, the level, it's enough to push a stock a little further. And the idea that people play it is probably more of a reason for it to work than anything else. So
yeah, I mean, Mike, you've been all over that since it was in the mid 40s, talking about that on this show. So that stock's had a lot of legs. Let's check in on Nikola here, which is holding up. It's at 28 right now. Any new news? Not really. They're still releasing things as if they exist. I mean, I don't know. I still don't like it.
I think each day that goes by and there's not bad news at this point, the stock will drift higher. There's a lot of people that like this company.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it.
And if it got back to 37 and then faded from there, it's still a big down chart from where it was.
That's definitely true.
Yeah, I mean, it could get back to its 200-day, which is 34 right now, right? Somewhere.
Yeah, I saw Mike Beyond again yesterday. I had another math. It's interesting because Beyond's at that point now where they keep kind of releasing almost the same headline releases, and it's causing their stock to go up. Like they, I guess, came out with another line of meat that they're going to be in all the grocery stores, which is a week after they announced the meatball thing. So,
are you still holding on, Mike?
Yep.
Yeah, you did well with that. That's for sure.
I do well with most things I have conviction on. If on this show the last couple months, it's been pretty spot on. I like having the camera on. That's when you have to be accountable.
It's a good point, right?
For sure. And just kind of checking in here, the averages and the different sectors that I'm following. But
I'm like an Uber at these levels with this whole vaccine talk. They've been beaten down again, and I don't really see that company's too big to fail. And I don't, I think they're set up nicely for where we're heading with self-driving and just in general. It's tough to. I already own a little Uber. I'm probably going to add to it today.
So you think people are going to just hop in a cab that self-drives them to wherever they want to go?
Musk talks about once it's safe enough, 100%.
I do, yeah. I would do it. I'm with Mike on
it. But how many years away are we on that?
Not long. This pandemic expedited this by probably 3 to 4 years. There's too much lobbying and money behind these companies. They're going to move what's happening.
Yeah, I also think, and we've talked about this before, we know that Uber at some point is going to need that for profitability. But in the short term, their stock's gotten so beat down because of the pandemic with people not taking Ubers as much. Yeah. And I think that's in itself, the vaccine and people starting to feel more comfortable. They have that going for them where they could get a huge pop just from that part of their business going up, even before the self-driving cars. When the self-driving cars come around and Uber is operating without people, which maybe it's a few years out, but at that point, you missed out. Like that stock's going to be over 60.
And it's coming way sooner than people realize. That's what always happens with these things. It just subtly you wake up and you're like, wait a minute. I remember when people were driving, what just happened? And that people don't see this is going to come to fruition.
Well, let me ask you a question though. I mean, obviously if Uber gets these self-driving cars, then Lyft gets them and then other companies will be involved. So they'll lower their prices again because they don't have labor. And the same competitive field with, basically better technology.
I mean, but look at our space too, to bring that to food. This is
the same thing I'm saying.
long term, like if what you're saying, they never end up making money, maybe you're right, and that
then they go under. They need self-funding.
Well, what I was going to say is that just seems to happen with all big industries at this point that are tech-driven, where they get so watered down that the revenues explode, but the profits are always just nothing. But if that does happen, you'll still have years where Uber is way higher than it is right now off of speculation that they are heading in the direction of profitability, in my opinion.
They need people not driving people around to be profitable. It's very simple. That's their model.
The whole concept of saving on labor makes sense to me, but because there's competition, the price will drop so much.
Come on, competition. Uber, look how many people have their app. What are we talking about? Competition? Lyft? Like that's not. They can coexist
right now, but we don't know.
Right now, no one else is getting into that.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're definitely they're the gorilla. They're the gorilla in the space.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about competition. Uber has the way the world's rigged. They have
Apple gets into Tesla. You know, who knows?
No, you're right. I mean, there's other companies that could easily get into the space.
Yeah, but Uber is also in food delivery, which is right now their profit engine. So when you take away the driver, which we know is a big part of the margin issues they're having at scale.
The food delivery part, down the road, people are going to be able to go to restaurants again. So it won't be as big as it is now.
What?
No, I think you got to look at like the trends of people ordering delivery through apps instead of calling like the restaurant down the street.
That's picking up.
See, believe it or not, that's only in inning like 4 or 5. We think it's in inning 12 and extra innings because we've been in the industry so long. But at the end of the day,
it's an infancy. Most people still call.
Yeah. So
buy Uber here, folks.
Yeah, this is why people, sell and buy and sell because
100%. It's interesting because it creates markets. Another stock that we've talked about a while ago, Mike, I know you like Activision, I like Take-Two, but that industry in general could be a good trade here into the colder months because with or without a vaccine, people are definitely starting to bunker down again because of fears of the pandemic. And even if there is a vaccine and things go back to normal, these companies have taken on such a life of their own with the way they're developing the live streaming and the leagues and the way companies.
That's why I also love GameStop. When you look at what they even do with these gamers in a lot of their locations, which is a lot naturally going online now, they're set up perfectly for the cold month. And that's a great.
Yeah, that's why personally I would rather play the maker of the games, like the Take-Twos, the Activisions, because
I own a lot of Activision.
I'm a big whether or not people are going to play them in person at a GameStop or live stream them on Twitter or like what we do right here, which is StreamYard, which I don't even know who owns that. It's more about they're playing the game. And there's certain franchises that these companies own that just seem like they're, here to stay. I mean, Grand Theft Auto, those types of games. And when you think about where the world's heading with augmented reality, virtual reality, those games are going to get way more exciting. So
how about an O'Reilly Auto Parts? We haven't really gone over them at all.
Yeah, I don't know much about it, but auto parts companies do well during recessions because people hold back on buying new vehicles.
Yeah.
So that's part of it, but general upkeep of a car, I don't know.
And how about Wingstop? We haven't talked about them in a while. When we talk about the time of year we're heading into, we know it's big in our industry for delivery and pickup. They're set up to, whether people are locked down or not, their model has been a winner in this.
I'm waiting for thighs to come out. I'm telling you, that's the next.
There we go, Dad. Yeah.
I want fried thighs. I don't come up with a good name and start deep frying thighs. They taste
good on stage next week.
What?
Yeah, I mean, Mike, I love where your head's at with Wing. They've come down a lot. I could see them making
I'm buying today at the Open.
What is the symbol? Tell everyone the symbol.
Wing, W-I-N-G. I could see them making a push to 175 just off of, getting hot again. They had a massive sell-off, though, here in September, along with the rest of this month.
I heard someone talking about Wingstop, and they said the PE ratio was so ridiculous that they said they're treating this thing like a tech stock. Now, I don't know how true that is or not.
I like that because I think they're going to benefit from the self-driving too, big time. They don't have dine-in as part of their model, which is great.
Well, one thing I would say is if we're talking technicals on a chart, their chart, it looks like it's a head and shoulders. And if that is the case, then it can come down to 100 easily. So
I'm going to be a short seller of this thing around 149 to 150.
But if it gets over 150, that's where maybe I would actually buy it for the run that it becomes hot.
All right, folks, let's make some money here.
I'm
Enjoy
staying
the
away
day.
from it.